今天要一起喝的果汁呢，来自于澳洲。澳洲这个国家的葡萄酒进口量在台湾是非常可观的。以金额来讲，它占总葡萄酒的进口额排名第4。大众对澳洲的酒的印象呢，是典型新世界国家的口感，浓郁、甜口、粗犷，容易腻果酱。但这次我要介绍的酒厂是来自于澳洲的南部，叫 McLaren。这个酒厂呢，就是 Yangarra Estate。它的诞生是由于全球著名的 Jackson Family Wines 的拥有人 Jess Jackson 先生，不断的在澳洲研究与寻找能生产世界一流品质的 Grenache 跟 Shiraz。在2001年呢，他找到了一块地，拥有最古老的澳洲葡萄藤。这个酒厂他就命名为 Yangarra。Yangarra 在原住民的意思就是来自于大地，代表他对这块土地的尊敬。他花了10年的时间，与酿酒师以及团队一同进行了葡萄园的扩建与修复。除了采用有机与自然动力法耕作，也获得了澳洲官方的认证。他的坚持只选用自家的葡萄园所栽种葡萄酿出来的佳酿，葡萄酒忠实的呈现地块的风土特色。今天我们更邀请了酒厂的首席酿酒师 Peter Fraser 第2次来台湾，跟威爸一起分享他的佳酿。Hey Peter, say hi to everyone.
Hi, how are you?
Is this your first time to Taiwan?
It's my second time, but I haven't been here for 8 years.
8 years. So what's the difference? What do you think has happened over these 8 years? And has Australia wines evolved over these past 8 years?
I think Australian wine has evolved. Probably more refinement going on in Australian wines. And I think probably what I'd call really sophisticated Australian producers are being exported.
I think it's very, very true. And I think the Taiwanese market and the consumer has really evolved throughout these 8 years. Taiwanese may be very familiar with Australian wines because it is the 4th largest import value in Taiwan. But however, Yangarra is so much different than other Australian wineries. Can you introduce us to McLarenville and also the style of Yangarra wining?
McLaren Vale is a kind of beachside town, if you like, and it's kind of quite Mediterranean in climate. It can also produce big, rich Shiraz, especially in the sandier soils and also of the high elevation of Blewett Springs, which is a kind of sub-area of McLaren Vale. There's kind of more refined, slightly more medium-bodied wines. What we do is make wines from a single vineyard. It's an estate with about 30 different blocks. We want our wines to really reflect a sense of place and interest, just like you would from wines of Burgundy or wines of Barolo or much of the old world where they grow their own grapes and make their own wines in where they grew them.
So I think it is fair to say Yangarra is different from some of the Australian winery. I think the terroir, it's a cooler climate, especially where the Grenache grows, and it's very sandy. And also, it's more evolved in terms of the palate.
Our wines have kind of greater complexity and maybe more savory elements that kind of makes them a little more interesting and intriguing.
So I would say that it's actually more sustainable in drinking. You can drink a little longer period.
Yeah, and very food friendly as well.
In my perspective, Peter, most wineries in Australia planted everything but Shiraz and Grenache. This may be related to the Australian government. At one time, they asked all the wineries to remove their vines. You know, I would like to hear from the inside, what do you think about this movement in the 80s?
Take it back further, there was predominant plantings parts were primarily Shiraz and Grenache, and they came into surplus in the late 70s, early 80s. What happened primarily was a growth in Shiraz, probably driven by the US export market. And that created a massive influx.
So there's a demand, then there's a supply.
Correct. And the government created a scheme to put money in the pocket of grape growers that couldn't sell their Shiraz or Grenache to pull them out. They probably wrongly advised them to plant Chardonnay, Merlot, and Cabernet, which were very kind of topical in that era, but they didn't take into account that maybe those varieties weren't suited to those regions. The result of that has left a scarcity of some wonderful old vines, specifically Grenache.
So, however, you chose to keep your Grenache vines.
Yeah.
And why is that so?
So our Grenache was planted in 1946.
Yes.
In that surplus period, the grower used to sell his grapes to backyard winemakers just to survive. He had an amazing tenacity. He was like, I'm not going to pull out vines that I planted with my father in the 40s. We purchased that property in 1998. When international journalists or wine professionals would visit, they would be like, Grenache is the most exciting wine that is coming out of this region. And so we had great stewardship, excitement to be able to continue to hone our skill of making Grenache from this vineyard, from these very old plantings. It was potentially probably not that popular and a more difficult sell to the market. But we knew if all these wine professionals from around the world were telling us how great this wine was, that it would only be a matter of time start to get the success that it deserved.
Well, it definitely did. So in Yangarra Winery, what do you think organic, biodynamic, or even natural wine benefit to the wines?
The biggest factor is we talk about terroir in wine a lot. We talk about wines show their typicity or their sense of place. We need to farm the soil in the most natural ways possible so that it actually reflects it. Not using synthetic chemicals for fertilizer, for herbicides, helps the soil flourish, or the living organisms that live in the soil. They actually help the plant take up the mineral into the grapes, which we then make as grapes, to make as wine. That wine then has that mineral element that makes it taste of its place.
In terms of organic, biodynamic, or natural preservative-free wines, it's really not about, selling. It's really about sustainability. That's why you have a label that is PF. And PF, I think it means preservative-free. So what does PF means in terms of preservative-free? And what's so special about it?
There's some very basic winemaking techniques that can help make preservative-free wine. It's a style of wine that I think young people love to drink because it's fresh and fruity. I think the freshness and the brightness of the wine, but there are a lot of preservative-free wines that are maybe a little less desirable to drink.
I know, that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's not because you're right here. I have to say that I have drank a lot of natural wines and they're really not, favorable to my palate. So, but when I drink your PF, it's like, oh, it's so good.
Yeah. I primarily made it in that style to make preservative-free wine. It needs to be not matured very long. So it does all its maturation in the bottle. So that helps it be really fresh and bright. It's easy drinking and freshness and really showcasing a more medium-bodied Shiraz that's very easy drinking.
Well, thank you for that very clear description, but I have to, it's a very, very big topic recently, and it's about the government in China with the Australian relationship. The price of Australian wine has significantly decreased. This issue affected Yangarra or not?
I think some of those price decreases more affect the cheaper, more volume, mass market producers.
Yeah.
More established producers in Australia have many markets around the world.
Yeah.
We have our wine in the United Kingdom, in the US, in Europe, in Singapore, in Taiwan. If one market kind of drops, we can just pick up that wine and sell it somewhere else because there is somewhat a lineup of people trying to buy the wine around the world. We would like to see our neighbours and our other, producers all doing well, but ultimately it really hasn't affected us because we make a limited amount of wine each year, and we're able to continue to keep supplying all the people that want to buy our wines.
Well, last but not least, I know it's very hard for me, but I still have to challenge you with this question. If there is one wine that you have to choose that's your favorite that you made in Yangarra, which one would it be and why?
It's a very simple answer. All my wines are like my children.
Of course.
So it's hard to have a favorite.
Yeah.
But Grenache is probably at the top of my list because one, it was an underdog and is now becoming a hero. In itself is a wonderful story. But I also think that Grenache, which we've actually got out here, ready to go, because I wanted to show you this wine. It has wonderful brightness on the palate. It's really versatile. And it's one of those wines when you pour your friends a wine, they all kind of stop and sit up and go, oh, what's this? I really like this.
Let's try it. This is the 77-year-old Grenache, right?
It is.
Thanks.
It was. So this is actually a museum release from our cellar. So this is from the 2015 vintage.
So 8 years old. It's very good.
But you can see in Grenache the beautiful fragrance, a little bit lighter in colour, a bit more akin to Pinot Noir or Burgundy, or even Nebbiolo that you might see in Barbaresco or Barolo.
Well, speaking of Pinot Noir, Barbaresco, Barolo, and Nebbiolo, you said that your Grenache is very similar in terms of style with them. We are using a Cabernet Sauvignon glasses. Do you think that we can use a Pinot Noir glass with this?
Totally. So it's my preferred glass.
Really? Wait. I'm gonna get a Pinot Noir glass. Can you tell us what's the difference if you use a Cab glass with your 77-year-old Grenache wines and with a Pinot Noir? What's the difference?
Look, I drink my Grenache out of a Pinot glass.
Okay.
So there it is.
You drink your Grenache out of a Pinot Noir glass.
Yeah. And I think it opens up the perfume, the florals. For me, that's what I love. It also nearly sets in my brain that I'm drinking something fragrant and beautiful. Well, here's cheers to drinking it in the right glass.
Everyone, one of the most famous winemaker of Australia, Peter Fraser.
Cheers, thank you. Thank you for having me in Taiwan. I really enjoyed myself.
Okay, cheers. 希望今天这段访问可以让大家认识 McLaren 的这个产区的酒款以及 Yangarra 这个品牌。更重要的是，跟着时代的演进，现在的我们喝澳洲酒的时候，已经不是在追寻浓郁的口感，更多的是优雅细致的新式风味。感谢 Peter Fraser 的到来，陪我威爸一起喝果汁，一起分享故事，一起讲真正的事情。如果喜欢陪我威爸一起喝果汁，请分享、订阅、按赞，还要记得开启这个小铃铛。Cheers, guys. Cheers, Peter.
Cheers. Thank you.